Welcome to the Right Hype podcast, where we talk about hype culture done right. My name is Gavon, brand strategist and content creator. Join me as I explore the pulsating world of hype culture with unflinching honesty and the dire necessity for sustainability and inclusion. If you want to follow along this journey, please visit www.gavonowen.com/righthype. Thank you and enjoy this episode. I feel like we should just start with like how we met each other, like how do we come into each other's lives? Because we both graduated from Emory. We both come from the ATL Georgia. You know what I'm saying? Down south, living up north. So like, I wonder if you remember how we first met. I'm curious.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you remember this. We met each other about 8 years ago. I was thinking about this last night. I was doing the math. We met at we met the night that there was like a series of Greek parties going on Emory's campus. And it followed this like event where you, as the sole noob, gave a speech. And you were also like the president of all of the Black Greeks. We didn't have the full Divine Nine, but the like handful that we had. And so you went up there and boy, millennials did business casual so well because you looked like a teacher. You were so pristine, so well put together. The beard was sharp. You went up there, you gave this really amazing speech. And I remember being in the back with some homies of mine that were alphas. And then we went to this party afterwards, and it was like a complete shift. You went from business casual to like turn up. And it was in a house. It was in an actual home.
I think I remember that.
And I just remember the lights being red. It gave you like belly intro. And then I saw you and my homie introduced me to you, and I was like, oh, it's really nice to meet you. And then from that point on, I saw you all the time, but we never got the opportunity to like sit and chat and like really engage with one another until years later. It was actually after you graduated, I think. Because we saw each other on campus and we had mutual friends, but I think the only real time we ever got to chat was once when I was working at the SAC and you came to the front desk.
I was gonna say the SAC, that was where we would always see each other like in passing. And I always remembered your face and I'd always be like, oh, that's Leigh. And I'd be like, I would love to get to know her, but at the time I still had social anxiety and I still have it a little bit. But you were always like so bold in like the best way possible.
Okay, good.
Like bold as in, not like bold like you're about to try somebody, but bold as in like your personality like was larger than life. Like I could feel your energy was so strong. And it was just, I felt like it was the combination of the like IRL casual hellos, and then the personality that you display on like social media that made me be like, okay, she's a really cool girl. I like her. And it was after I graduated that we actually like intentionally connected over like our passion for fashion and style. And it was February 2020 when you came and stayed with me and my roommate for New York Fashion Week. And that, I remember like, there's so many like interesting stories from that week.
Oh yeah.
Itself that we could dive into. But I just remember, I think, telling you right before you left that like your presence did a lot of good in my life at that pivotal moment because I was going through some relationship challenges and some personal challenges, and your presence that week just like taught me it helped me like to not give up. It was like, you still gotta keep fighting, you still gotta keep going, you know, things are gonna happen, but like you have to move forward. And I remember that being like the thing that I learned from you. And that's how our friendship like was solidified.
Man.
We are friends now.
Yeah.
And we are in this thing together.
Yeah, that really was like the thing that solidified our friendship. Because I remember walking away from that week with the same feeling from you, being like validated in both my passion for fashion, but also my career, and you being the first person to tell me like, you can do the things that really make you happy. You don't have to choose. You can make it all possible. And then also like being boots on the ground for the very first time during Fashion Week, seeing it, experiencing it, breathing the air and the adrenaline, and having someone who worked in fashion saying like, okay, listen, this is how you navigate it. This is how, you know, similar to your most recent podcast episode. And then also like, I really remember that day we spent on your couch. We spent like an entire day just bonding. You like prayed over me. I remember this. And then we talked about this podcast. It was like the brainchild moment. And here we are 4 years later on a couch, different part of Brooklyn, but still like hashing out the idea of, or not even the idea, really we're now at the process of like hashing out your greatness, you know, like really like putting it to fruition and getting it out there. So that was a big moment for us.
That was cute. And it wasn't until we had this like this conversation right now that I was able to really appreciate it even more, and why you telling me like the podcast has always been a work in progress, and now it's here. And but I want to go back because much of like our relationship has been cheering each other on. It's been like, do it, say yes, go for it, do it anyways. Like we've been doing that a lot, and I want to just take a moment for you to talk about all the things that you've been doing. And feel free to take us back, feel free to start wherever, because I feel like this is what I want to talk about, is just all the things that you have been doing and how you're like managing it all.
Okay. Professionally, I am a jewelry designer and a research scientist. My fashion journey started like in utero, kind of. My grandmother owned a dry cleaners. She was a tailor and more, you know, like a seamstress. And so when she was, I think in her 40s, 50s, she opened a dry cleaners in the south side of Atlanta, in the Swats, Charlotte County line. It was Ponder's 60-minute cleaners. And so all of my mom's siblings, with 6 of them, they all worked in that cleaners together. And so we grew up like exposed to clothing. We learned about designers young. We learned a lot about just the industry, but no one tapped into it until me. So fast forward, when my time came to work in our family dry cleaners, I was about 11, 12 when I started learning the ropes. And when people would not come and get their clothes after years and years of them just collecting dust, we would go through the inventory, pull things, and give them away. And so that's when I started learning the whole like vintage curation process. Started pulling older pieces like oversized men's button downs and things like that. And so I started learning how to dress from there, and then accessorizing came afterwards. So my aunts would give me all of their old hand-me-down jewelry, and I would stack it on top of each other, just layers of just beads and stuff. And as I moved a little bit more into like my own sense of personal style, I started taking the pieces apart and putting them back together again. And I got so much of a knack for it that people would ask to buy things off of me. And it was actually you who encouraged me to go into business. And I started my own Etsy page in 2020. It actually didn't do well, so we ended up taking it down and then flipping it into a website. And over the years, people would ask me, like, hey, Leigh, could you fix this for me? I have this thing. Is it possible for me to change it in some kind of way? And so I continued to just like mend jewelry pieces that way. But it wasn't actually until, like I said, 2020 that I considered going into jewelry design. I actually decided to go into the fashion realm first. So I started modeling at about 16. And when you model, you learn like the ways on set, right? You learn, and if you pay attention, you can really like teach yourself a lot of the aspects of the industry, like creative direction, set design, things like that. And I ended up going into styling when I was in like grad school. I started my own fashion blog. I picked up a lot of, I guess, like notoriety on Emory's campus because I started these things called like Fashionable Fridays on Oxford's campus, where every Friday we get really, really dressed up, and then like me and all the black folks, you know, like, and then you put that on, like it became like a thing. And I ended up getting involved in fashion at Emory. And so that kind of like springboarded me into starting my blog. And then from there, I started doing fashion modeling. And so one thing led to another. I went from working in the dry cleaners to modeling to styling. And then I moved into the creative direction space from there. And creative direction and art direction, depending on like your skill set, you can really marry the two. And so once I was in that creative direction space and I had the necessary like influence, that's when I decided to start going into jewelry design full time. So that was my fashion journey. All throughout that time I was in school for, you know, medicine and science. And so, like you said, you and I, we met at Emory, but I started at Oxford College of Emory University. I double majored and minored the entire time through school, so I was constantly working. And after that, I got into grad school. I worked in various labs for different researchers as a research assistant for years. I moved overseas, came home. And then, you know, just like any career, you have to work for free. So I was an intern, I was doing all the things, and all the while still in fashion. And so by the time I came to New York, I was like fully fledged in my career. And now I work for NYU School of Medicine.
Wow. So what do you do at NYU School of Medicine?
I work for the Clinical and Translational Science Institute. It's a mouthful, but basically our work within translational science is, as the name intends, it translates like research bench lab work. Like you see white labs sitting at a, you know, in front of a little MR flask. And then we make it applicable to everyday life. So a lot of my work is minority facing, immigrant facing. A lot of the work that we do translates like new concepts in medicine in language. So explaining complicated concepts to folks in ways that like make sense so that they can apply them to their everyday lives is a lot of things that I do.
Wow. What you do at NYU is just so essential to like so many communities locally and even globally as you increase your influence and your reach. I remember during the height of COVID, you would send out tweet updates about what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I was so impressed. I was like, this is, you know, as you're scrolling, you see a bunch of nonsense, foolishness. Mm-hmm. And then I like will see something from you and it'll be like, you know, remember to wear your mask, or like, remember that this booster's coming out, and just like things of that nature are like, you know, we have reached XYZ amount of lives that I've lost recently, like, please consider just like people going through loss right now. And it was just like, it just showed that you had a heart for keeping your people safe, and I love that.
I'm surprised anybody was even paying attention. I was really hoping at least one soul saw it, but now that really does mean a lot. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing. A lot of the things that we do, we don't know who we're impacting, who we're touching, and even with this podcast, like we don't even know who will listen to this and will be inspired to be a jewelry designer and work in healthcare. And I want to also double click on some of the things that you haven't promoted as much, but you also went to film school. You did a film program. Let's talk about film because
that still blows my mind. It's so fresh.
It is very fresh, but I want to catch you while it's new because I think there's so much that we can talk about later on about how things are coming together. But yeah, tell me a little bit about what drew you into do a film program.
Wow. Okay. I have always been like a TV film buff in many, many ways, to the point where I catch myself quoting movies in everyday conversations, and it has derailed conversations so many times. And I don't know if it's something I need to work on or just keep it up, but maybe I just need to find my people. Nevertheless, I still really like, I would keep my own self company as a kid. So I was constantly watching films, and every Friday our family would have like movie nights, so we would either go to the movies or we would rent a blockbuster film. So I was constantly inundated with it, and anyway, I always had a love for the medium, and as I grew as a scientist, I learned that there was a lot of information that I was providing that needed to be like given on a larger scale, if that made sense. Like you said, I would go on Instagram and I would go on Twitter and, give these little monologues of updates on medicine, and it being relayed by a Black woman, it was received well in many ways because people saw themselves, they recognized the person on the screen, they felt comfortable. I was speaking in languages that they could understand. And so as COVID grew and as my research further developed, we learned that really putting people's faces on, the concepts that we were trying to explain to people gave it more meaning, gave it life, So I ended up being a part of this project that was in the Bronx 2 years ago. And it was called the Hope Bodega Project. And it really, really inspired me because it was people from the neighborhood who came together and talked about why they decided to get the vaccine. And the Bronx is one of the poorer neighborhoods in New York City, but it was also like one of the highest rates of death in New York City from COVID. And so having people who were from the neighborhood, who sounded like each other, who looked like one another, who were recognizable by the community, saying like, I live in a multi-generation household where my grandmother lives with us, my parents are, older, and I work every day. I'm an essential worker, so I had to get the vaccine. And so by people telling their stories, it just promoted, the humanity of the vaccine, right? Like a lot of people were very uncomfortable about it, but in reality, it saved a lot of lives. And there was like a human aspect to it that went untold. And so once we told that story, it like triggered something in me. And I felt like it was nothing more than divine intervention in that moment because I was trying to figure out like, what is the next step for me in medicine? Do I want to continue doing research? Do I want to teach? What do I want to do? Earn my PhD? And in that moment, I felt like there was the hand of God was like, you should be a documentary filmmaker, my child. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I really played with the idea. I was sitting in the laundromat in Harlem. Like, I remember this moment. I was sitting there looking at their dry cleaning menu. And I was like, What do you mean documentary film? Why would I do that? And I really played with the idea for a long time. And when the opportunity presented itself for me to go to film school, I just kind of went for it, not thinking it would grow with, potential. But I really want to lean into the concept of patient-centered storytelling and having people who experience medicine on a day-to-day basis sit down and explain their experiences. On the same flip side of that, I want to have, on the flip side of that, on the same side, have Black providers and research scientists like myself also sit in front of the camera and do the thing that I did during COVID, which was explain medical concepts in a way that people not only understood, but is digestible. So then that way, you're getting insight on how to navigate the medical system. You have providers learning from Black and brown people in real time about their lived experiences so that they can incorporate this knowledge into their care. So if you have a white physician or an Asian physician who doesn't understand the nuances of Black life and Black culture, saying, oh, you should really work on managing your blood pressure. Well, if you don't tell people how exactly they can do that in a translational way, then they're going to be like, okay, and they're managing their, high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever through pills and through no other means. So patient-centered storytelling is why I decided to go to film school. I got the Fundamentals of Documentary Filmmaking certificate from NYU's Tisch Film School last year. It ended in November and it's still March. It's just now March and it hasn't clicked in yet, but I'm really excited for the next phase of my career and where this goes and how it grows and grows legs and where it takes me. So very excited.
I'm so proud of you, friend.
Thank you.
You got 2 degrees and a certificate.
3 degrees.
Three. Okay, so what are your 3 degrees?
I have a liberal arts degree from Oxford College. I focused in anthropology. I have a dual anthropology and human biology degree from Emory University with a minor in predictive health. I have a master's in public health from Mercer University, and I have a film certificate from Tisch Film School.
My mind is blank.
What's crazy is you've seen me throughout all of this process.
That's a lot of school.
And I've been in school for a lot of it, which is crazy. That's why I really want to get my PhD, because I don't want to go back to school.
I mean, yeah, I feel like, and we talk about this all the time, like, if you know what you want, you don't have to go back to school. If you feel like school is going to elevate you to where you need to be, then go for it. But I feel like you know exactly where you're marching towards, and you've been given divine instructions, which are the best instructions. I love it when
Very clear.
God is like, you should do this. And then I love it when you ignore him and then he sends a little birdie.
Circles back.
And it's like, oh yeah, you should do this. And it was like, I could have sworn I just heard that the other day.
Actually, you're right. I should.
Exactly. And those are the moments where you really just gotta lean in and be like, well, if I don't do it, who will? And maybe I need to be the first one so that more people can come behind me and so that it is normal to do these things. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, you have crafted out so many different lanes for yourself. How do you juggle all of those responsibilities? How do you nurture all of these interests that you have and the talents that you've acquired? It's a lot of things that you're doing.
Yes.
How do you manage all of that?
I ask for help and I prioritize sleep. I'm so serious. For the longest time, I didn't do either one of those things. And I had a very rude wake-up call, like health-wise. Like I was burning out at an astronomical rate. Like as soon as I would recover from burning out, which takes a long time, I would burn out again. And that in some cases landed me in the hospital a couple times when I was in college. And just, you know, being incredibly and increasingly mindful of the fact that if I'm going to be the one doing all this, I have to take care of myself in the process. Also, leaning into the things that are happening without me doing anything, if that makes sense. So when God put his hand on my shoulder and said, you know, be still my child, this is what I want you to do, I had to take a Six Flag approach to this, to life. Like, I'm in the car, the strap is down, just all I have to do is keep my hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times, and I'll be just fine. Although it's gonna, you know, life's gonna take me like this, I'm still strapped in, you know, and I'm not the one operating the machine. The machine is being operated by a higher power, and even if I try to, like, I don't know, move into the next car, it's still going, and that might be very dangerous for me. So making sure that I eat, that I sleep, I manage my schedule as well as I possibly can. I'm getting to the point where maybe the next year or so I may need to, like, hire an assistant. But yeah, like, also I try to learn as much as I can from people who've already done this. And although being a multi-hyphenate is becoming a very common phrase, there are people who are doing, like, multiple things who've gotten a good grasp on how to operate. And so I've done a lot of reading from multi-hyphenates. Like, I've read a lot of people's autobiographies, and I think the one that really stuck with me was Issa Rae's Diary of an Awkward Black Woman. Love that book. Definitely recommend. A lot of life lessons. And Elaine Welter's book, More Than Enough.
Wow.
Because she talks a lot about the concept of being the youngest and the first to do something, which she really was. She was one of the youngest and one of the first Black women who was editor-in-chief of Condé Nast publication. And to manage a magazine of that magnitude takes a lot. And she talks about how she did a lot of that stuff herself. Like, she was doing crafts, she was doing set design, she was doing styling, she was doing all these things, and every opportunity she got to learn from people who were doing those things, she sat down, took a pen and a paper, and asked all the right questions. So I've been managing my sleep, managing my time, but also learning as much as I can from people who've already done this and who have the tips and the tricks on managing a schedule and managing a team and managing and juggling different parts of life. So those have been my keys to success, and hopefully it keeps working for me.
Something that you brought up is something that I overlook all the time. And it hit me while I was at the grocery store 2 days ago. Mental health is so important. Like, health, wellness, caring for yourself is so important as you run this race. I'm a workhorse. So
Yes, you are.
I sometimes, like, am like, oh, I'll sleep whenever my body gets tired or whatever. Like, I just throw it to the side. So I'm just so happy that you brought it up, because I constantly find it to be a distraction. Like, oh, like, resting is distracting me from
It's productive.
going after the thing that I want. But, like, here you are saying, like, if I don't rest, I'm going to essentially run myself into the ground. And therefore, all of these things that I'm building will amount to nothing if I can't enjoy it and if I can't keep it up. Like, what's the sustainable way? And, I just appreciate you bringing that up, because I could give two hoots about mental health sometimes. And it's the Jamaican in me. I think it's the workhorse in me. I think it's I want to make my parents happy. I want to make my friends and my family proud. And I want to get there as quick as possible. What does a typical week look like for you?
Okay, so my week starts on Sunday. It's the Lord's day of rest. And in many ways I do try to rest, but because of all the things that I do, there are many times where I'm like doing something on a Sunday. But typically what I like to do is I like to sit down and get a grip on what my week would look like. I write it all down, and then I will break up tasks based on their due dates. So I'll look at all of my schedules. I have 3 different schedules. The only place that they all commingle right now is my phone. So on my calendar, I'll have, like my work schedule, and then my personal schedule, and then I'll have like my work schedule on my computer, and then I have like two laptops and a screen. So I have 1, 2, 3, and then I'll just literally write down, okay, on Monday I have a meeting at 12. I have a client meeting at this time. I have something due on Tuesday, so I have to block out time to finish this thing. And then let's say I have like a presentation on Friday, I have to block out a time on Wednesday and Friday and Thursday to prepare for Friday. So having it written down really, really helps. I'm trying to get into the habit of writing it down in 2 places. So I have like a work journal that's just like a notebook of things, and then a physical calendar that I want to like start writing things on dates so I can visually see you have 2 weeks until this. And I think that's going to help me block out time. My weeks vary. Typically I have, work meetings for research studies that I'm a part of. So I'll meet with the teams. I have an intern and I typically meet with her on Friday. So I try to like have as much of my week either like planned out in preparation for me giving her instructions, or being able to ask for help, knowing like, okay, I have too much going on this week. Can I ask so-and-so, can we move our meeting? Or can I, whatever, because people are open to helping. Also, folks will push something if it's not like necessary at this time. So let's say, like a client will come for a studio visit on like a Sunday, and they'll come and, my studio's in my home, so I have to basically, like clean the house top to bottom, not that it's filthy, but making sure that, I change the space into a workspace. And let's say like there was an industry thing on Saturday, so I have to like recover, get the house ready after like having been out the night before. And so, being mindful, like, okay, you can ask them to do this later in the day. You can maybe ask them to do it on Monday. You can, you have the freedom, and you don't have to be as rigid as your schedule like may seem. So offering yourself flexibility is definitely one of the ways that I managed to like make it through the week. Also planning my meals around how much I work, because I'm a brain food kind of person, and if I don't eat, I'm not going to be able to truly function. So that all helps, and it flows into it. This one really looks like.
Listen, juggling the professional life, the social life, and your personal life is so tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the part of like adulting I don't think people talk about enough.
No.
Or give space for, like in those respective areas. But I'm very proud of you for learning how to delegate, because that is going to be my goal for this year, is reducing the amount of tasks on my list and finding a way to shift that task somewhere else, because your time is so precious. You want to rest and make sure you're getting good rest. You want to eat and make sure you're feeding your body with good food. And I feel like something that we often forget is like we're human, and we aren't meant to just be these machines of productivity. But so much of us doing a lot of different things, being a multi-hyphenate, having an array of talents, having an array of responsibilities, it's all tied to kind of our image, like who we are as people.
Yeah.
And it can be really challenging, like juggling all of that and balancing it and doing it well. But I will say, like, you and I are very fortunate to be able to go after multiple things at the same time. And as much as these things take a lot out of us, I'm sure they're fulfilling.
Incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah. I mean, what do you find to be the most like fulfilling aspect of having these outlets?
Knowing that I'm a good influence in different areas.
Ooh.
So, in my medical career, me emphasizing eating, well-being, having a social life is like revolutionary. It is. I'm so serious. I show up to work prepared every day, right? And in some cases, let's say you're working with a research team where everybody's not on their P's and Q's. That in and of itself is exemplary. Like showing up, having a good attitude, putting on a pair of earrings on a Zoom call, wearing lipstick, greeting people, asking them about their personal lives, creating a sense of community amongst people who, sometimes research science can be very socially awkward. We're notorious for that as scientists. It is just a professional habit, I guess. Or, like when I go to conferences and I present, I look like this. And many people who prioritize like their scientific careers don't prioritize self-care. They don't prioritize like getting dressed to feel good in the morning. You just kind of throw on things and go to work. And so like I put care into my wardrobe and how I present myself, but even on the flip side of that, like wearing my own jewelry every day, I get to be like my own walking billboard. And so when I'm in spaces, whether it be scientific or academic, and I'm showing up and I'm a little like glitzed out and I have an air of glamour to me, people are like, wow, Leigh, you look great, and it provides like an opportunity for things to not be as rigid and like I said before, academic. And on the flip side of that, when I go into fashion spaces, I had to learn this too, not being so prone to like dimming my greatness, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of us that are in fashion, have been in fashion all these years, have been working our way up towards it. And some folks, that's all they know. And so for me to go in multifaceted, it's like, I've been told this before, you're the most interesting person in the room. And so I was like, oh, that's not me being the Dos Equis girl,
This is true.
But I try to show up as my most authentic, dually minded self in every situation that I go into, so that I'm not damping my own light and that I allow myself to feel proud of my own self, which is something I had to really learn how to do. Because in many ways, I feel like greatness was just expected of me growing up. And there wasn't a lot of moments of congratulations. There wasn't a lot of pomp and circumstance. It was just like, oh, you did that thing you were supposed to do. Good for you. Tap on the head. Push you out the door. So I think, did I answer the question? I feel like I've been rambling.
No, you said a lot of things that really struck me, and I want to talk more about your jewelry and your style, but I do relate to you when you talk about greatness is expected of you, and I share a similar sentiment that, I wish there was a more outcry when I did something, when I did something that deserved celebration. And sometimes it didn't even need to be huge, like graduating from college or birthdays or like just, like maybe even just just like small things I wish our family members knew to like celebrate us, because I think then we would have a greater sense of accomplishment in our multi-hyphenicity. Our multiplicity. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like we became multi-hyphenates to compensate for all of the,
Is this the Read podcast? Golly.
I just sometimes feel like, were we like not forced into greatness, but like, did our circumstances push us to be so great that we have no other option but to be the most interesting person in the room?
You might be onto something.
And I feel like it comes through in our style. Like, we also, that's probably one of the biggest compliments that not only do we give each other, but when we step out, when we went to Paris Fashion Week or Milan Fashion Week and we're standing in line for an after party and getting pulled out of the line because we looked so good.
So good.
Because we don't, like, mediocrity is not an option for us.
No, I don't know that word. I know a lot of words, but I don't know that one.
Mediocrity is not something that we naturally try and align ourselves with. We always align ourselves with greatness, and I feel like that comes through in our style.
Yeah.
I agree. And in some ways, it's like, to our family members, like, shame on you, but you made me great. You know, you made me great. Yeah. And it's such a catch-22 because sometimes you look back and you're like, wow, my family really like doesn't really come through for me in all the ways that I want them to. But then it's like, thank you for teaching me that I can do bad all by myself.
Wow. You are preaching.
Thank you for giving me this level of confidence and strength that I now can rest in a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
And be like, I am enough now. I'm proud of you, my friend.
Thank you. You're absolutely right when it comes to the family thing. I think chosen family has really been like a huge foundation for me, like a cornerstone in all that I've been able to accomplish, because there are times where I was just like, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? What am I doing this all for? Who am I doing this all for? And growing up, my mother's a physician, so she used to tell me every day when she would take me to the bus stop, she was like, remember who you belong to, and that's code for don't embarrass us, and like some form of God is watching you, which was very alarming in a way, but it definitely kept me on my P's and Q's. I think it did what it was intended to do, which was like scare me into like, like gathering me and getting my cookies in order. But now, like years later, I have people who I went to high school with who were like, Leigh, you were so classy in high school. And I was like, dang, that's a compliment. Like, or I looked up to you when we were in high school. Like, we were the same age, How is it that you looked up to me? But I had like my mother's voice in the back of my head every day being like, don't embarrass our family name. Like, Childish Gambino, he was like, oh, our family name. That wasn't me. I was the opposite of that. I was like, let me not embarrass every member of my family. But also I noticed, like, as I got older, our family knew a lot of people because of our family business. Like, we were one of the only Black-owned dry cleaners in the south side of Atlanta. And if you, like, if your family went to a church, they got their church clothes dry cleaned by my grandma. Or, like, if you were a young working professional, my uncle probably cleaned your suits. So it was like, in a way, our family was far further reaching than I had anticipated. And so by, keeping me astute, I was able to, like, not embarrass everybody. Yeah. But embarrassment is a very, like, has a negative connotation. So you're constantly, like, looking over your shoulder in a way. You're constantly, like, trying to double check yourself. And that can be very, very anxiety inducing. My father was a minister. So growing up in the church, you couldn't embarrass the pastor. And so there are a lot of churches who don't offer the children of pastors freedom to just learn and be themselves. It was always like the fear of God is over you. You're being watched, So I had to be, a good representation of him. And so as I got older, I ended up going to work for my mom for a short period of time, but I worked under someone who worked with her. It wasn't like straight nepotism in a way. It was very indirect. But if there's nothing else Black people should work towards, it's Black nepotism. So shout out to my mama offering me opportunities. And her offering me an opportunity, which I really did work for. Like I earned my spot on the research team that I was on as a junior, research assistant. But I was, in a way, a representation of her. Because one, I look just like that lady. And two, I have her last name and I carry, the family name with me. So as I was working, people were like, you were such a good representation of your mom, or you your mom's child. And I was like, okay, I'm earning my keep here, but I had that over me for the longest time. And so doing what was expected of me was the bare minimum. Going above and beyond was what was kind of required. And so being a good representation of them was basically what my life was for a really long time. And it wasn't until I went to grad school that I learned, Leigh, you are your own woman. And a lot of things that you've done in your life is not a testament to them, it's a testament to you and of your hard work. And developing a strong friend group of young working professionals really helped me establish my sense of self-worth. I definitely had to go to counseling and therapy for a while to learn self-worth, because for a long time I did not feel worthy of all the things that I had accomplished and I had done, but really I had worked for that. It was earned, it wasn't given. And so I got to a point where being validated by the people in my life, it was something that I still worked towards, but it had a different meaning. Like you said, you wanted to make your friends proud. You wanted to make yourself proud. You wanted to be the one to offer opportunity for things to be celebrated. You have to volunteer that stuff and be like, hey guys, I went to grad school. And as soon as you said, this is the date of my graduation, we all put it in our calendars and we rolled deep to your graduation. And it was worth every moment, sitting and listening to speeches. I was sitting there my baby was right there. You see his name? And it was a beautiful moment. And being a part of that celebration and then having those same people be on the other side of that when it's time for me, it means so, so much. So having a strong support system is key. Whether that's your direct family members or not, that it's all circumstantial, because in many ways I've also learned that my family, they don't really know what I'm doing, but they don't ask. So when I offer the information, it's just sort of okay, sure, good for you. Because it doesn't relate, it doesn't translate. No, like I said, no one else, out of all the people in my family, no one else went into fashion. Even though we were all primed for it at a young age, I don't think anybody pursued that as an opportunity career-wise. Yeah. So to be on the flip side of that and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to Fashion Week, they're like, okay, how do you do that exactly? What does that look like? So
yeah. I want to talk a little about the style aspect of Leigh. You have such early references, and I'm very, very curious, when did you discover you had style?
I would say, okay, this is really bad because I couldn't dress at the time. But I don't think anybody could dress well during the millennial, business casual, stiletto pumps in the club era. None of us could really dress for real, but we swore we was putting that shit on.
Okay.
So I would say my senior year of high school, I realized I had some semblance of style. Now, I didn't know what my own personal sense of style was until I got to college. But I used to get mistook for substitute teachers by freshmen when I was a senior in high school because of how professionally dressed I was. Now, mind you, I was really just wearing my church clothes to school with a little twist. I would wear those oversized vintage button downs that I would tell you about with the ties that would be left from the cleaners. So I was wearing necktie, like ties, dress pants, and like stilettos to school. So I was really like put together. And then when I got to college, I really learned my own sense of artistic expression through my clothes, which I didn't realize that's what I was doing. But I would float through that campus just wearing whatever. Because that was the first time I had full control over my image. You know, like, again, I was wearing church clothes because I was constantly going to church. So I had like sheath dresses, blazers, trousers, blouses. But then when I got to college, it was like, okay, those trousers with a t-shirt, revolutionary. Or a button down with a, you know, knee-high boot. And I'm going to, you know, anthropology class, like, and I'm busting it through campus.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about my own creative expression that way. And then I think about my junior year, I got interviewed by Campus Magazine. So I was like, oh, okay. People are like paying attention to what I got going on. And then it was maybe about 5 years after that, I dated a photographer who was like, you should start taking photos of your outfits. And then that's when I got into the whole like creative direction part of my modeling career. Like I moved at that point from modeling into curating entire shoots around outfits, and finding locations to shoot these looks in and pulling things together that way to where it was like an entire packaged concept. And then trial and erroring outfits until I got to the point where I had gotten rid of every uncomfortable piece of clothing that I owned. I started I found my own tailor in my own neighborhood. Because for the longest time, like my family members would do that for me. So I would take, you know, pieces that were like oversized. I would buy them up one size. I'm a thick girl, I'm a tall, thick girl. And then have it, you know, cinched at the waist or any of those types of things. So now I have a fully fledged curated wardrobe that fits me like a glove. And now I'm at the point where I have all the capsule pieces to where I'm not like buying, you know, like plain black shirts, or, you know, I have trousers that fit my aesthetic, and, you know, so on and so forth. So I learned that I had personal style in high school. It didn't truly develop until I got to college, but it's now at the point where it's like at its peak, I'd say. And that took another 10 years. So here we are now.
I mean, there are so many gems. Like, first off, personal style takes time to develop, and it takes intention and participation and consistency and finding things that are right for you. If things are not right for you, it is okay to banish them out of your closet and get rid of them. Yeah. But there's also something really insightful that I wanted you to talk about is you are a tall, curvy woman. How do you find clothes that fit you?
So for years I shopped in like the men's section. And I like reverse engineered men's clothing. I have a tall, strong build, like I have broad shoulders for a woman, but most people can't tell because I dress for my body now. I also learned like it's okay to buy clothes 2-3 sizes if it's not made for your shape. So for me, there are two elements to, like, let's say fast fashion, right? If I were to buy a pair of jeans on a fast fashion site, I'd have to go up 2 sizes. One to account for being tall and one to account for being thick. So it's like, okay, one, I'm going wider and wider. But in truth, it's not that I am that size, but it's like you have to work around the clothes, not work your body around them. If that makes sense. And for the longest time, I dealt with body image issues because my own mother was like, "Girl, you get a little big back there," and she was constantly monitoring my physique. And I had to break out of that mentally for a very long time. And this is not a Leigh bashing her mom episode, I hope. But
we love you, Mom.
we do. Big shouts.
We love you.
But truthfully, I had to learn, like, okay, it's okay to be your shape. And during the pandemic, I gained about 15, 20 pounds. It went to the right places. But I had to really, like, redo my wardrobe in many ways. I had to count for, you know, my thighs being wider, and, you know, I don't really have hips, but I have a butt, so I have to have things taken into account, you know, for the low crotch, you know, because things would sag if there was nothing to hold on to. And, you know, for the longest time I used to cinch things with belts around my waist, but that was solely because it just didn't fit. And I've noticed, like, as I've gotten a closet that has, you know, developed, and that I've really worked to tailor, like, one piece at a time, which is typically where I could afford. Like, sometimes getting a pair of pants tailored is like $25 to $50, depending on what you have to do. So you have to take it. You have to take it one piece at a time. But that also forces you to not constantly buy clothes, because if you're buying stuff that doesn't fit, you're gonna get rid of it. Hence your second and first episodes plug. But you were right. It takes like going over it time and time again with a fine-tooth comb. Finding the person in your neighborhood. Like, I've tried at least 4 tailors in our neighborhood. Wow. And the one that I have now is in Flatbush, and I have to really, like, get on a bus and go see Shawty, but she's really, really great at her job. And she's affordable, so that works also for me. But yeah, it takes a lot of intention, a lot of care. Like I said, I started out wearing men's clothing and, like, trying to find shapes that fit me, but over time, I would have to, and then I went from the men's section to the plus size section of fast fashion. Then I got to the point where it's like, okay, I know certain designers work for me, so maybe I need to just stick with that. And then, you know, throughout the vintage trying on process, whenever I go thrift shopping, I can never find things because they're never built for people with my shape. It's either you're tall and long, you're short and wide. It's never tall and shapely. It's never a combination of the two. So, like our group of, like our girl group, like our friend girl group, we have clothing swaps. We're all size like 8'10", but everybody's a different shape of an 8'10".
Yes.
So it's like, okay, well, if this is too short for me, I'll give it to her. And if she has something that's too long for her, she'll give it to me. And so also, like, bartering is a thing. And trading, and, you know, then in many cases, if you have something that you really love and it's hard to part with, you can still see it live on through someone, and then, you know, it's not lost forever. There have been pieces that I've had tailored to fit my body that don't fit me, and I'm like, gosh, I spent almost $100-something just getting this tailored, not even just the cost of it. But I see it on my homegirl, and I'm like, well, it look good on you, you know, like, and I just have to leave it at that. But it takes, like you said, a lot of intention, a lot of curation, a lot of time, effort, and energy.
And clothes are so personal. Like
Yeah.
you just said, like, you know, you put effort, you put on your makeup, you put on your jewelry to go to work, you put on these clothes, and it's a reflection of who you are, it's a reflection of how you feel. Like, of course you want things to fit well.
Yeah.
Of course you want to feel good in your clothes. And I think a lot of the industry doesn't highlight that as much.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I think there's merit to go, like, to what you're doing, which is you're treating personal style as a science, and you are figuring out the formula that works for you. And that takes some time.
Very well said.
But, like, why can't brands do that as well? Like, figuring out what's going to work best for me. And it just feels like a lot of that work falls on you. And that's why when people see you and you've been able to, like, accomplish the style that you've accomplished today, which I want you to describe. I would love to hear like your own kind of description of that. But like when people see it, they respect it. They respect people who have taken the time to figure out what's right for them and not just take what the industry says at face value. It's really unfortunate that even like to your point, like with thrifting, it's hard to find pieces that are going to work for you because that's not it started off from what the brands made and they weren't considering you when they were making it, and so now that's at the thrift store and it's still not fitting you. So and that's something I did not know. I mean, personally, I have thick thighs, so I feel like brands think that men are like straight leg sticks and that we don't have thighs. And so I hated shopping at like just about every store. Like I used to work at J. Crew, and I hated that I couldn't wear like J. Crew or even like designer stuff. I'm like, I can't wear this because y'all are not making it for me. I had to go start shopping in like women's section because at least women's section they were assumed to have hips and a behind, and I was like, well, maybe the women's section will, they have like the elastic waist and just things that would work. Shout out to Leigh because I have one of her pants.
Yeah, we exchange clothes. So I feel like so many members of our friend group have stuff from my closet.
Yes.
But I will say though, like I've learned, especially like getting deeper into the trenches of the fashion industry, that there are some brands that offer like size inclusivity, but God, they're expensive. And you have to just have it like that to get it like that, if it makes sense. But
at the end of the day, you're gonna pay to have it to your size, whether you're buying it off the rack and then having it tailored, or if you're buying it from these more size inclusive brands who put a lot of time and energy into making this offering. Like you are going to have to invest, and at the end of the day, like your personal style is an investment.
It really is.
If you want to do it right, if you want to feel good, if you want to be able to open your closet and be like, we can just we do this combo now, boom, boom, boom. It's gonna take some time to get there. But yeah, like what is Leigh's style?
It is somebody asked me this recently, and it took me a long time to come up with the words. But if you were to put me in Pinterest, for me to come up, you have to type in dark academia, classic streetwear. But like by classic, I mean classically influenced streetwear. So you have like your standard, like Jordan retros, but with like a dress pant and a blazer with like a really fun crop top, or something with like pattern and print, but in a very like neutral color palette. Like I'm either wearing all black or like neutral or real pop of color. Like it's. But I also learned like I don't do well with pastels. I don't wear soft muted tones because that kind of drowns out my skin tone. I also don't wear a lot of yellow or a lot of pink because it flushes me out. If I do wear pink, it's real bright hot pink fuchsia. But that's like the contrast to like the soft pink, right? Because there's pink in my skin tone, the bright pink looks good. But the soft pink, it just kind of look like a thumb.
This is tea.
It's true. So learning also what colors work well for your skin, that's like next level boss type, fashion 101. So yeah, tailoring and finding your colorway is very, very important. So I'd say like dark academia, like pop of color streetwear, or like classic tailoring with a twist.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is the multi-hyphenate, not just in work, it's also in style. Like you can have multiple ways in to dressing, and I feel the same way. Like there's some days where I'm in full street, tactical, utilitarian, like
Flight suit type shit.
exactly. And then there's the side of me that's like really buttoned up and loves to put on a blazer and some slacks. And then I'm a sneakerhead, so I like my loafers. I like my mules. I like my sneakers. I like my boots. Like it gets expensive.
Yes.
And time consuming.
It does.
But it's also good to know that when you step out, you're like dressed in your best and you're gonna feel good and look good.
It's very rewarding. And also it's like, once you put in the effort on the front end, shout out to your, was it episode 2? No, this is episode 1. When you put the effort in on the front end, on the back end, you have to spend less and you're buying less and you're consuming less.
Oh my God.
So you hit the nail right on the head with that, because it's very, very true. I don't buy as many clothes now, and if I do, there are pieces that genuinely bring me joy, like true joy. Last night I bought an Atlanta United football jersey.
Oh gosh.
And I'm very excited for it. I'm not gonna hold you, because I have the Chicago retros, and so I have the Jordans that go with it's really too many sports in one outfit, if we're being honest. But being able to play it down, something I look forward to. And I don't actually wear a lot of like vertical bold stripes. It's not something I have. Like I have pinstripes, I have button downs, things like that. But something bold and fun that's outside of my comfort zone is what I'm like veering into now. Because now I have all the statement pieces. I have stuff to go with the bold stuff, because everything is lined up in an eloquent fashion. Like I open my closet and I'm inspired, and I'm able to like pull from that in a way that's fruitful.
What's a brand that you feel is size inclusive?
The first one that comes to mind, I don't own anything by them, but I think about how consistent they've been with every collection they've come out with as far as body inclusivity, and that's Selkie.
Spell that?
Selki.
Okay.
They're notorious for like tutu dresses.
Oh.
You've seen a Selkie dress before, you just didn't know what a Selkie dress was. And Selkie dresses are very short, and they're flowy, and they're gorgeous, and they look good on every body type. And they are notorious every season, come Fashion Week, for casting larger models.
Wow.
And every season, they blow us away. Like, the way that they celebrate bodies is beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's like, and everything is very ethereal. It's very airy. It's very light. It's a lot of pastels. It's a lot of, muted colorways and flowy fabrics, a lot of chiffon. And it's done in such a way that's beautiful and not tacky. Sometimes people can take chiffon and it can go one of two ways. It's a very difficult fabric to master, and they get it right every single time. So that, as far as like a celebration of bodies and body inclusivity in its truest form, I say Selkie, because they're the first people that popped into my head, truly. But where my price point, I can't afford Selkie. Yeah. But they do have a black dress. God, love it. Anyway, so Selkie was the first one that came to mind for the girls and the guys in the days. I'd say a good brand. I've never tried on their clothes, but I would like to say, I might be butchering the name, ATLeighN.
Yeah.
Just the way that things sit, it's all very like non-gender conforming clothes. Like anybody could wear anything and it look good on them. The way that they do cutouts, the way they do slits, the way they expose skin but also cover skin. I would, every time I see somebody in an ATLeighN piece, I'm like, I would wear that. Yeah. And I went on their website recently and I was like, if I had the money, I would wear every single one of these pieces, because every single piece is both maximalist and minimalist at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it can be incorporated, as far as my wardrobe is concerned, every piece can be incorporated in a way that I would eat, like, devour. So I'd say Silky and Arlinga, they do a great job. As far as also a celebration of bodies, Laquan Smith, but I also don't know if those clothes are size inclusive because they all give.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the diversity on that runway just drool.
Yeah. I like ATLeighN too.
Mm-hmm.
So really good.
As far as like a streetwear brand, that's a good one for me. I'd say Bottega has done an incredible job of being size inclusive for their tailored pieces. And Giorgio Armani, they do a really great job of like taking tailored pieces and fitting them to any kind of body.
Interesting.
My mother actually wears like a lot of blazers from them because they do broad shoulders and wide forearms well.
Oh wow.
A lot of that stuff is very much like stuff you would imagine a professor wearing. And I don't have a lot of that stuff in my closet, but you know, I think those are definitely some that come to mind like off top.
I like that your mom dresses like and invests in her closet. I know you've talked a lot about the pieces that she's given you over the years, which is true sustainability in action.
Mm-hmm.
Honest in its finest form is like a hand-me-down from a parent. I do that too. Shout out to my dad. I legit will go into his closet and your mom will give it to you. I would take it.
She's also a shopaholic, so she'll buy stuff, leave the tag on it, not wear it, and then give it to like me and my sister or my cousins.
I love that.
So, and then also we all wear the same shoe size, so shout out to her.
Yeah.
But our shoe styles are very, very different, and I think for the longest time, also as far as like fashion influences go, she was one of mine because she dressed me how she would dress. I think it was something a lot of moms do with their daughters. Mm-hmm. So when I got to the point where I was like as far as my size was concerned, where I started like really wearing stuff that she had in her closet, she was like, "Oh, okay, so try these on," and be like, "Oh, that would look cute on you," and I'm like, "I wouldn't wear this personally," but I didn't have like the ability to like say, "No, mom, I appreciate it, but not right now," until like I got to this point where I'm like paying for my own clothes and tailoring and things. But like boots, she was a big boot girl. I'm also a big boot person. That's like a staple in my wardrobe, is boots. And some of the boots that I have still to this day are from her. I feel like a lot of things that I had that were older, I've given to people, or I've like sold or thrifted and put into consignment. But yeah, a lot of the like classic tailoring was very much influenced by her and my grandmother. So that plays into it as well.
Thank you so much for just sharing that little bit, because I think there's so much to be said about our early influences when it comes to our family, our roots, our heritage. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that we can truly identify with, and they're unique and personal, so they play a role in style and and identifying in one style and having ownership over one style is when we look back at those initial influences, and then being able to preserve what is so important, like family ties and the dresses that your mom gave you and the suits that our parents had. Like, these are things that are timeless and they have stories to them that make the pieces so much more elevated than when any brand is going to tell you what's elevated. What are your thoughts just on the state of fashion right now?
I think fashion is being forced to go in the right direction because at this point they have no other choice. If they are complicit, then it can be their downfall, I've noticed. So a lot of brands started out dressing small women. right? And then you think about like as a model, talk about sample size culture, right? And I was told for the longest time you could not do runway because you're not a sample size. And I ended up doing runway, and it was nice. But they put me in an all spandex outfit because that's the only thing I could shimmy into. And then the other show that I did, it was very flowy pieces. So all that it had to fit was from like here up. Now, companies, brands, designers are being called into question as to why certain things aren't made for other types of bodies. And they have to answer to that. So I think fashion is, although it's being strong-armed in this direction, and by that I mean like, I don't know if everyone is a willing participant in this change, there is change taking place, which is a beautiful thing to see. I think there are still many avenues where people like refuse to conform. So that may be like more in the beauty aspect of fashion, right? Like if you look at the amount of Black hairdressers that work backstage compared to the number of Black models, there's some issues there. And there are a lot of Black models who are forcing the industry to change in many ways. So I think as far as the direction fashion is going in, I think it's changing for the better. I think we still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I also feel like there are many designers now who get it. They are imbued with the responsibility of tending to the needs of all different types of bodies before they even get their start. So the new generation of designers, I think they really do get it. Like they really get it. One of the best runway shows I think that premiered during this previous Paris Fashion Week, like days ago, was by this duo designer couple. Their collection was very much centered around body inclusivity. They had older models, plus size models, transgender models, disabled models, and every type of body was presented with the intention of being like, you see these clothes? They could be put on you. So I think, again, there are new models, new designers that really, really get it. And I think them being the new generation and the new wave, it's going in a great direction. Now, as far as like the diversity within the fashion industry of like who are the placeholders and who are the decision makers, clearly we're going in the wrong direction because every new fashion house is naming a young white man as its new head of the house.
Yeah.
I think of 5 on the top of my head, and I'm not about to start naming them. But think about all of the major fashion houses who've renamed creative directors in the past year.
Yeah.
All white men.
Yeah.
And these are large fashion houses. These aren't just like, you know, things you may see at Saks. No, these are people who like hold stake, have seats at buyer tables, who are showing up front row for every major show because they know that they're that retailer, like Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom. Or if they're inclusive, a white woman.
Right.
But or they may be queer, but that's not full inclusivity as we know it. If you have all these Black and brown people wearing your stuff, there should be a Black and or brown or multiple, if not a majority, people, placeholders on your design team, on your board of directors. You know, the decision makers need to start looking more and more like the people who are consuming the product.
Yeah, it's always weird to me when I see Black and brown consumers like ogle over brands that like have zero diversity on their board, or like the diversity is like the production team that they hired, or the diversity is
Your assistant,
the cleaning staff, the assistants, like people who are like lower on the hierarchy of fashion. And she is the CEO, founder of Harlem Fashion Road. This quote she always says, she said it interview with Business of Fashion. She said, fashion is supposed to be cutting edge, it's supposed to be innovative, but yet we lack in diversity, and you can't have both. Like, that's impossible.
Yeah.
And it made me feel a lot more empowered to have this platform to bring you on and talk about this topic, because I truly feel like you and I are like people who are thinking about these things and how we can break barriers. For you, you've talked a lot about film and healthcare and how these two can come together to empower minority communities. You've talked about being like one of the only, your family were the only people who were of color who had a cleaner shop. Like, these things are, we say it all the time, I can't wait till we're done with like the first. Like, that would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Those are brands that have really leaned in though. Like, I can't say shout out to LVMH as an entity, but them hiring Pharrell and then Pharrell hiring Tyler, like, come on, that's Black nepotism. But also, like, I truly enjoy the kind of carrying on that's going on. Because that's my kind of carrying on. Like,
carrying on.
The kind of redneck collection he came out with as a country woman. Like, come on now.
Listen,
and then
Texas.
And then Beyonce's bad self turned around and wore that big ass Doug Dimmadome hat to the Grammys.
Yeah.
I love that kind of shit. Like, it's beautiful to see. Truly, like, through and through. And then, like, you think about the companies who have diversity just in their veins, right? It's imbued into the fabric of who they are. Off-White.
Yeah.
This Off-White collection that just came down this runway,
so good.
Incredible. And the fact that their current creative director came behind Virgil and his work spoke not only in the fashion realm, but in the publication space, because he like managed a magazine. He was like editor-in-chief of a magazine before. And then you think about, oh God, the beloved Edward Enninful, Jesus. So you have all of these people who come before us, who made space and who are like screaming from the hilltops, like, we're here to stay, we take up space, and the things that we make have not only longevity, they have buying value.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the stuff is not staying on the shelves, and there's a reason for that, because, you know, Black people, we imbue culture into everything we do, and people want to see themselves represented in the things that they purchase.
Yes.
So it's like, there's opportunity there, and I do the same thing with my brand. Like, it's built around inclusivity. Like, every campaign has been either a Black and brown person or an inclusive campaign of some sort. And we just want to continue building on that, because I understand that people see themselves and they want to be involved with this. I'm dabbling into clothes these days, right? Like, I designed this jacket, I put the buttons on it.
Wow.
And like, I've been doing pieces here and there, like integrating like metallic elements into classic pieces. That's the thing I love most. But it's like, my clients are dark-skinned, good-looking Black folks. Because also, I understand that I have an element of privilege as a light-skinned Black woman, right? Like, I know that my everyday struggles pale in comparison to that of other Black folks who are darker than me. Not to say that I don't have my own struggles that I deal with as a Black woman, you know, but I want to feel validated and seen in the products that I'm purchasing. And I want my clients and potential like consumers to feel the same way when it comes to my brand. So that, I think, in and of itself adds to the overarching like answer to your question about like the way I see fashion, where I see fashion going, the way I see fashion, and what I see for the industry and where it is now.
I just love that you are like taking personal style to the next level by not like upcycling essentially. It's really taking a piece, adding something to it to increase its value. Value is obviously subjective. Like, value is what you are doing when you are putting your hands on that piece of clothing and elevating it. So that to me is just so incredible. I am going to definitely follow your footsteps and try and do that too with some of my old pieces, bring them back to life, because I think that's truly how you start to create personal styles, through personalization and doing things that aren't necessarily expected sometimes. So I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I throw brooches on stuff, you know, just any way to incorporate like a vintage element. I also love, you know, like the entire brand is built around that concept, right? We take vintage pieces and family heirlooms, rework it and turn it into something else. So it comes with a story, it comes with a history, and it comes with an element of sustainability involved. But also it's like very personal. Everything is mostly like one of one. And like your hands, no one can have hands like yours because all of these pieces were curated for you, you know, by me.
Okay.
So it's like
I had to represent today.
Gang. But it's like also when you see your hands, you smile. It brings you joy, right? Like, and I want that to be what people feel when they wear stuff. Like I have clients who will be like, Leigh, I wear your stuff every day because it brings me joy. And you told me that this was something that came from like a piece your auntie gave you. So I carry you with me. And I was like, oh my God.
That's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Right. And it's true. And I love that shit. I love it so much. But it goes back to your first episode where you talked about having a relationship with your pieces. Relationships are key, whether it's with jewelry or with your shoes or with your clothes or with your accessories in general. Like I curate my accessories so intently that I only buy things if I can see myself wearing it. Like if I see the outfit in my head when I look at a bag, I'm like, it's coming home to me. It's not like, oh, this is cute. I might be able to wear this. There's not a might. There's not an air of confusion when it comes to anything that I own now.
You're not strong arming no outfits.
It's effortless. Why are you trying to convince yourself
exactly
that this is something that you want? You know, like,
yeah.
And again, it takes trial and error, and it takes time. Like, I didn't realize I was a full hand ring girl until a couple years ago, and since then, all my friends have now been like, you know what, maybe it's right. Maybe I should put on more. You know?
Yeah, same.
And I was talking to my homegirl yesterday, and I was explaining the fact that I was helping her pick out an outfit. And all the things that I suggested, she was like, no, I won't wear that. And I realized, like, our styles are different in many, many ways. And as I was trying to explain how, like, in my brain, she's a maximalist and I'm a minimalist, she's like, no, that's not true. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you're a maximalist in your own way. You'll take a very simple outfit and you'll freak it in a way that no one will ever wear it. And she's like, you'll wear jeans and t-shirt, but you'll drip it from the neck down. Your hands are crazy. You got wrists and earrings. And I'm like, I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
In a way, like I am a maximalist of my own right.
It's ornamental.
It's ornamental. I'm keeping that.
Okay.
Very well said.
But that's
Christmas
what I
every
love
day.
about us as Black people is that we care about how we present ourselves and we put that thing on. Like we really do put a lot of effort into making sure that we are just, we look good, we feel good, we're dripped. And I love that.
Yep. Yeah. My grandmother, she used to always say, I look too good in that. I can't wear that no more. She used to say that. And I think
I ain't never heard someone say that.
I had to get away from that.
Crazy.
Because that was my family's version of saying like, oh, I have to save this outfit for like an occasion. But I had to break that, you know, and learning and owning my own personal style. And it's that you don't have to say that it fit for an occasion. I'm notoriously overdressed for everything now. And everyone knows me as such. And you know, like I'm not gonna steer away from it. Like a peacock. It's the concept of like showing all of your feathers and keeping them shown.
Yeah.
And wandering about in a space to where everyone sees it.
Yeah.
And it's not like a vainglorious thing, like, oh, look at me. It's just you're not attention seeking. Attention just finds you.
Okay, we don't chase, we attract.
But truly, like there are times where I go outside and I'm like, I feel good, but I'm not thinking about how other people see me. But then I'll have my favorite compliments on when black women walk up to me and be like, oh my God, you look so good today. I'm like, it's true. Like, I got to the point where I had a marketing executive sit me down and say, Leigh, you have to wear your stuff every day so you can be your own walking billboard. And I've also had like people I know who work in like production and advertising tell me like, you need to start taking videos of your outfits every day, because that in and of itself will garner you the kind of attention that could lead directly to like clientele or sales.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in front of you wearing a full shaft leather fit because I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be a good representation of my brand myself, but I also like, don't embarrass the line. You know, like, what's stopping you from wearing this all leather fit today? Nothing.
You look good.
Thank you.
You look good. I thought it was Scaparelli at first. I said,
Let's
go. We're getting a Scaparelli.
That right there is a goal of mine. To wear $10,000 gold, solid gold jewelry every day. To be told like I look like I'm wearing Scaparelli right now. That was a compliment beyond your understanding.
I was just like, oh,
I love this Scaparelli.
Put me to shame. It's been fun. I want to wrap things up. And what are you excited for? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah. I'm very excited for the next phases of my career in both aspects. Like in the coming year, we have so many potential like new opportunities coming down the pipeline for the brand. We had our first major like brand campaign last year, which was like mind blowing. We were featured on the Under Armour women's commercial. So I'm like so grateful for that, but that just came from working with people in our neighborhood. And so I'm really looking forward to like continue to collaborate with our just neighbors in Bed-Stuy and the people who see me every day and who want to continue to support me in ways that tap into like their industries. So my homegirl from Complex, she wants to work with me on a project, and I'm like, the Complex? So I'm like, wow, okay. So there's that, and then I have a buddy of mine who is going to be plugging me in with like a major designer. Fingers crossed, you know, for that. Friends of mine who are producers are going to be working with me in this coming year to put on our next major event. I'm very excited for that. Leigh's Antiques is hopefully going to be happening this year, so an antique tea party. We're talking fabulous hats and suits and dress to the nines, and people be able to auction on some really amazing, exquisite vintage pieces that we've been able to come across, and that I was like, there's no way I could take this apart. Like, this is too nice. It has to be put on a display somewhere. Hopefully we'll do our first like art exhibit in the next year. That's something that I'm very much excited for, looking forward to. We did like a pop-up exhibit last year during Fashion Week, which I'm extremely grateful for. So really taking what we learned off of that experience and capitalizing on it and doing it somewhere here in New York would be great. So we have a show, we have some productions coming up, some really great, amazing collections that I'm trying to wrap up right now so we can shoot them and get them out into the world for the people to buy. And as far as professionally, I'm really excited for this year because I'm giving a TED Talk, as you know.
I was going to say, you better bring this up. Come on.
Shameless plug.
Okay.
So we have a TED Talk coming up in June. I'm very excited. I'm really excited for what's to come from that, because people's lives, like professional lives, blow up after they give TED Talks in the best way possible. So I'm hoping to leverage this next year with the work that we're currently doing, the work that I'm wrapping up, the work that we're proposing for the next couple of research studies, as well as like the attention that's garnered from the TED Talk. I'm hoping to be able to pivot and use that to hopefully create my own institute centered around patient-centered storytelling.
Well, congratulations on everything that you've done up until this point. I want to celebrate you. I want you to know that you are loved, that you are killing it,
Okay.
that this is your season, and the next season will still be your season. And just remember the things that we talked about, of course, taking care of yourself as you are tackling all of these great opportunities ahead of you. Just remember, you have just begun. Like, you've really just started. You are not even into your 30s yet.
Yeah.
Like, this is just the foundation for what's to come. And
No, I just gotta take the Six Flag approach.
the Six Flag, I like that. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, that's gonna be like, it's gonna be one of those pop-up moments.
I need a tattoo, the Six Flag.
There you go. But also, I wanna thank you for having me and congratulate you and say how proud I am of you. And it's not lost on me that this concept grew from multiple conversations on different couches.
Oof.
Like, it started as a conversation on a couch in Flatbush, and it grew into a true idea on a couch in Harlem.
Yeah.
And then it turned into a true concept in the couch upstairs. And now we're here.
On another couch.
So it's like on another couch. And so it's really like, I'm thinking of the moments where I was sitting across from you talking about this, and now we're talking about it, and it's a beautiful thing to watch grow and spread wings. So I'm incredibly proud of you and all that you've been able to accomplish in your years of fashion, because again, we saw each other from the very beginning, and we saw how this grew, and now you're like a true blue like marketing strategist, executive. Like, you're a stylist. You are also multi-hyphenate, and it's only the beginning. So it's really only.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe, rate, and review this episode wherever you listen to your podcasts. Doing so helps grow the Right Hype community and helps me reach my goal to 1,000 listeners. Thank you. Peace out, fam.